statement coming in from the United States of America is not signing in on the G7 statement on the Israel-Iran conflict. The information that we have is President Donald Trump is not signing that G7 statement. We will get you details of that statement in just about a moment from now. The G7 is seeking dialing down of escalations. US President Donald Trump is very clearly of the opinion that Israel has a right to defend itself, but to what extent does that right go remains the big question. I also now want to bring into this conversation, joining us on this India Today special broadcast, is Professor Ephraim Inbar, President of the Jerusalem Institute of Strategy and Security. Kabir Taneja is Deputy Director and Fellow, Middle East Strategic Studies Program at the Observer Research Foundation. And Sandeep Unnithan is a senior journalist with me on this broadcast. Sandeep, bring us details of how on this, the G7 is not on the same page on the road ahead. Donald Trump, this is the first time that Donald Trump is also interacting with other G7 leaders after he's taken over for his second tenure, and everyone clearly wants to ensure that they're not riling up Trump all the way. Sandeep.
Absolutely, Gaurav. And the big question in all of this conflict over the last couple of days, Gaurav, is been the flip-flops from the United States. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, a few days back said that the US had nothing to do with the Israeli strikes on Iran. And then a few days later, you had Donald Trump coming in and asking Iran to, come and strike a deal, and that Israel was using American weapons against Israel, against Iran. And so it's a very bizarre kind of, mixed messaging that's coming from the United States, Gaurav. But, the fact is that Israel could not have struck at Iran without the approval of the United States. It's not just the weapons, it's just the whole timing of all of this. Ahead of the G7 summit, the fact that Iran has been playing hard to get. You have the IAEA statement that's come about. And of course, that new outreach towards Pakistan. General Asim Munir, Gaurav, we've been talking over this over the last couple of days. What made the United States, go back to Asim Munir and bring Pakistan out of the doghouse in the last couple of days? So all of this points to a new great game in West Asia, which is targeted at Iran. It's meant to keep Iran away from getting nuclear weapons. And in all of this, it seems that Israel and the United States are fellow travelers, Gaurav.
One thing is very clear. Israel wouldn't have mounted an operation of this scale, this magnitude, and the level it's targeted Iran without the United States being on board. And if G7 countries thought that they will get Israel to back down without achieving those aims and that President Trump would sign in on it, perhaps, they were expecting a bit too much. Were they? Kabir Taneja also joins me on this broadcast. Kabir Taneja, how do you look at this report that's coming in from Calgary that indicates that Trump is not signing in on demands for de-escalation? Israel clearly appears to be moving towards a goal in mind. Is there clarity on what that goal is, and what is your appreciation of Trump holding out?
Thanks, Gaurav. Look, I think this is a win-win for Trump, right? Trump has been sort of developing this idea of attacking Israel since his is attacking Iran since his first term, and now Israel is basically doing what Trump would have liked to do, and this is basically Israel doing it without Trump having to enter the war theater himself. So there are no U.S. troops involved, there are no U.S. ships or aircraft involved, and Israel is doing the heavy lifting. So this is basically Trump giving political support to Netanyahu to cause, I presume, as much damage as possible to the Israeli nuclear program, in a hope and expectation that maybe, just maybe, Iran comes back to the table in a much more weakened position, and they can have a better political leverage over Tehran on what to do with the nuclear program if it has indeed survived the onslaught.
And when you look at the situation right now, Sandeep, it does appear Iran, though may be weakened, it's clearly not still, it's clearly still in the battle. It's not out. It's been able to, even on day 4, mount an attack of enough number of missiles, rockets and drones to overwhelm the Iron Dome and David Sling system and cause damage even in Tel Aviv and Haifa.
Absolutely, Gaurav. What we are seeing right now, Gaurav, is one of the most bizarre conflicts in the history of the world, where, two countries that are over 1,200 kilometers apart, they don't have a land border, are, swinging at each other like boxers. They're throwing ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones, and of course, fighter aircraft. And this is one of the most unique such conflicts in the world. And, while Iran does not have an air force, Gaurav, they've not had any new fighter aircraft in decades. Their, air force dates back to the 1970s, to the Shah of Iran. They've kind of offset that weakness, that vulnerability by creating this drone and missile force. They have a force of over 3,000 ballistic missiles, it's estimated. The US, one of the US generals estimated that they have over 3,000 ballistic missiles. Now, Israel has one of the most powerful air forces in the world, and they have not only have knocked out the Iranian ground-based air defenses. Today, you have Israeli jets flying with impunity across Iran, and Iran has been firing those ballistic missiles at Israel, as you mentioned, that arsenal of ballistic missiles at Israel, literally, pounding them with dozens of ballistic missiles in the hope that a few will get through the Iron Dome missile defense systems. And indeed, it seems to have happened in a couple of places. We saw those terrifying visuals of hypersonic missiles getting through Haifa and attacking civilian areas. So this is the difference in this conflict, Gaurav. The fact is that Israel is carrying out very targeted strikes against Iran, and Iran is retaliating with these ballistic missiles. Now, the Israeli strategy also is very interesting, Gaurav. What's emerging over the last couple of hours is that while Iran may have thousands of ballistic missiles, it only has a fixed number of TELs, or transporter erector launchers, from which it can fire these missiles. So the Israeli Air Force appears to be targeting all of these TELs with great precision, knocking them out. They claim to have knocked out almost a third of Iran's missile launch capabilities by targeting those TELs. So that leaves Iran with fewer launchers through which it can fire those ballistic missiles. So it's actually a war of attrition being fought literally
However,
over
it
days.
would appear two-thirds would still remain. Kabir, initially, they may have been overwhelmed. Iran may have been overwhelmed with the strikes, the extent of strikes on Friday. But on Monday, it's been able to strike back, overwhelm the Iron Dome system, strike with impunity. A third of its TLs have been taken down. But how much of the capabilities, in your appreciation, still remains? Because through Friday and Sunday, Israel was targeting their missile bases, their production facilities, their launch sites, and their storage capabilities. And yet on Monday, they're able to strike.
Yeah, Gaurav, look, the initial strikes conducted by Israel are quite significant. So one would have imagined that the damage that done in the initial stages would have been significant enough that these kind of launches would not have taken place. But clearly that shows that there is depth in the Iranian missile arsenal, and that they can continue doing this for some time at least. Now, no one knows how long this can go on as a protracted war, because Israel is a very densely populated small country. The impact of missiles falling on Israel on civilian populations is going to be much higher than it is going to be possibly in Iran. So I think we'll also have to see what the political dimensions of this are going to be. For example, in Iran, there is a lot of talk about what kind of response the public is going to have with the failures of both the Ayatollah and the IRGC. But there are also reports coming out of Iran that despite disgruntledness against the political dispensation, people are rallying around a more nationalistic tune to stand against Israel as Iranians. first, rather than getting divided on their political lines. So it's not necessary that we are going to see this narrative, political narrative also of, regime change, for example, playing out in the way that some of the commentariat is expecting it to. So we'll also have to see what kind of political response from the people of Iran also is put forward.